also a Linux enthusiast. He's incredibly excited about his new Android phone. You want to show off your phone? Right there. So, and he has not stopped playing with it since then. So everybody, Justin Fisher.
Hello. So with that said, I am a web developer and I'm only an enthusiast when it comes to the phone. So if you have technical questions, like highly technical, we'll see if I actually know what it's like, how it works. Below I just kind of put a bunch of icons of the kind of things that I like to use on a regular basis. Ubuntu is the distro of my choice. And then I can't live without like SSH and VLC, type VNC, and all that good stuff. So, what is Android? Android is an operating system for mobile devices, primarily for smartphones. That's what it was initially designed for. It's built on top of a modified version of the Linux kernel. So, you know, this little device here is running Linux. And it is completely open source, so you can go onto the source website, I'm not sure exactly where it is, and download.
I think it's code.google.com.
Yeah.
It might
I'm
be.
Sure
I think there's an
where,
Android specific site too, but
yeah. Like Android.com, if you go there, they have links to all these things. And I say this primarily under the Apache license, and what that means is, of course, the Linux kernel is going to be under the GPL2, but the code that Google and the services that they're putting into what they're building on top of the Linux kernel, they're putting in the Apache license so that it's easier for businesses to be able to take the phone and modify it without having to publish their code if that's what they prefer to do. The Android operating system is developed by the Open Handset Alliance. Most of these companies I've never really heard of, but primarily Google is the one developed who kind of jump-started the project and has put most of the funding into developing the Android operating system. But you can see that there's some pretty big players like Texas Instruments, Intel, Motorola, NVIDIA, Samsung, Sprint, T-Mobile, Sony, Toshiba. And the Open Handset Alliance, along with Android OS, they also have a couple principles that they have of trying to make a standard for mobile devices and communications. The Android operating system supports a large variety of hardware configurations. I think the best way to equate it is, well, I shouldn't say the best way, but one way to think of it is how Windows runs on just about everything and a Mac only runs on select pieces of hardware. That's kind of the way Android is built versus the iPhone. The iPhone runs on one thing and Android can run on a plethora of a lot of different devices. It allows applications to be installed via Marketplace, and third-party developers can program applications in Java and distribute them through that marketplace. And the main marketplace is hosted by Google, but there's nothing stopping anybody from putting their application up on their website and say, hey, download this and install it, and you can install that on your Android operating system. You're not exactly tied to that marketplace. So I'm going to give a product tour real quick. Initially, I wanted to create my own little video and just show you how it looked, but as you can see, I could not get my camera to focus at all on the phone. So what I'm going to do is show part of this video from Google, and I tried to find a good video that summarized all the usability of the phone, and I really couldn't find a great example. So this one's from almost a year ago, so it's a little dated, and I'm just going to kind of piece apart parts of it that I think are useful.
Who are these guys that did the presentation? Are they Google people, I assume?
Yes.
Okay.
And this, they're using the G1, I believe. So, and it was kind of when, I think it was a release for the 1.6 Android, and they're now at 2.1.
Actually, they announced 2.2 today.
Well, it's officially
Froyo
released.
is officially out there. Well, it's officially announced. I don't know if it's officially out there.
So, our cupcake release, which is what all the most users in the world have right now with the Android devices. I just I just wanted to highlight some of the cool things that the system can do and sort of illustrate some of the things Dan and I have been talking about. Google's a company focused on speed. You know, you do a search and you see how many milliseconds it took to get the search results. We try to apply that in the UI design as well. So, you know, we have this status notification bar. I don't know if you've seen this. Our users love this, where basically any app can put a notification in there that's touchable and actually takes you to the app or some independent activity within the application. And this is not just accessible to us. This is any application. Similarly, in terms of speed, we don't have sort of a hub and spoke model where you literally have to come back to home to go everywhere. And you'll see this in the demo. You can jump from app to app based on interfaces that they define. They can define, and that can be used by all. We also have a widget model. Here we have a search box by default on the screen, but you can also, I could add a different widget if I wanted to. I have a bunch of choices. So we really try to make it easy for the user to jump around and get at their information very quickly. I'm going to talk about multitasking next. I think it's a big advantage of Android. You can really run multiple processes at the same time. And this is also an opportunity to demonstrate some really, what I think are cool third-party apps doing a lot of the stuff we're talking about. So there's one app called TuneWiki that is a music player that replaces the native music player, but it does some really cool stuff, like, I don't know if you're going to be able to hear this, but it actually displays the lyrics of the songs it's playing. Can you hear that? Yeah, there you go. So it's actually gathering lyrics from the internet, creating a service for that, and their app draws on that, and based on the song that's playing, it can do that. Now, where it gets really cool is there's another third-party app called Shazam. It's a company that's been around a few years. They do music recognition, literally based on audio. So if you're in a bar in the car and you hear a song you like, you hold it up and it tells you what the song is. So I could do this on a separate phone just as well. Play it over the PA, but I'm going to just tag that song. Yeah, it is. So I could use two phones, exactly. We're not using native code at this time. I think they're planning on moving to that, so this will get faster in the future. So there's the app. It found it, and then various apps that define interfaces that anyone with a song can jump off and use. So, here, let's go to YouTube, and here's a bunch of songs. Looks like Maroon 5 played on David Letterman. Now we may get audio playing over audio at this point, so I'll probably just back out of this. But this is all, by the way, happening over the 3G connection. Yeah, so there's David Letterman. How to introduce them. You can also go. You got the. link lock and whatnot, but obviously that's a pretty expensive thing in terms of power consumption, so developers need to use that judiciously. And obviously when you're playing music or when you have the screen and the backlight on, that's one of the most power hungry things you can do. For the user, not in this release of the software. I don't think we. The question was, is there a way for the user to see kind of what the power consumption profile is? And I can't make pre-announcements here, but we're working on something like that. So.
We do have that.
Okay, so that's so from that song, I jumped off to Amazon and I could literally go buy the song here and download it to the phone as well. So so we make it really easy for folks to jump around between apps when there's sort of common information that they can all share. And again, just showing you the notifications here, it's telling me I'm playing the song. So I'm gonna jump back to that. I'm gonna pause that. Note that there's no actual notion of quitting the apps. I'm really just sort of jumping from app to app, and the system is really smart about kind of managing the memory in the background. So if I go launch something big like the browser right now, that'll get kicked out of memory because the browser's pretty big in terms of memory footprint. So, and you can always go in the app manager and
SD, yes. Onboard, no.
Can do it, but we want to make it so that the user can never needs to do that. It's more sort of a browsing model with the home and the back button. And what we do is when you run out of memory, the apps that are in the background get sort of freeze dried, and the state gets saved, but they come out of memory in that way. So that's. No, Dan, do you know the answer to that? It would.
So Android's been in existence for like 18 months, right? Give or take.
About, yeah. Publicly available.
Yeah.
I've seen an Android-based web, the iPad, and it's cool.
What's the cool thing about that?
Well, it worked
Android?
because, I mean, if you think about the iPad is basically an iPhone, a big iPhone,
Yeah, which
you know,
is
so
Android.
why not?
Well, the Nook runs Android. The Barnes & Noble
So
ebook reader.
jump now. I want to talk about. I think I showed you widgets before. One of the widgets that's really cool is our voice search, which is an app as well, but you can launch it from this. So I'm going to push this. Ethiopian restaurant, San Francisco. Okay. So what this has done is it's driven a web search base. You can see it recognized what I said, given us our mobile search results. By the way, the browser's using Google Gears, so it knows, this blue dot actually knows based on sort of my cell ID that I'm running on right now, the cell tower on roughly the area I'm in. And you see a bunch of listings here. Notice the number isn't a link, nor is the address, but you can see it gets outlined in green. At least the address did. And so the system's smart enough to just pick up what our phone number, so I can call this now, or I can literally click the address and go view it in Maps. Here I'm in that mode, the satellite mode. And I could go and get directions to the address from my current location because it knows where I am. With different levels of location. The default is to just do the low power option, which is where you are based on the cell ID or the Wi-Fi ID.
Since 1.6, it now does turn-by-turn directions as well.
Yes.
Oh, so it's like the GPS direction.
Yeah, it'll speak. It'll say, you turn right in a quarter mile.
Yeah, it's turn by turn, and it also does speaking.
Oh.
So it'll tell you when to turn.
So let's take a break for some pizza.
Okay.
And the satellite view works really well. The drive-by thing, it does like a slant. You can see ahead. It works really well, and it tells you where to turn and everything. I like it. And another feature is when you did that voice search where you just talked into it and did a search. They now have it where any kind of input field on there, you can talk into it, and it'll translate it into text. So if you want to send an instant message, you can go in the instant messenger. They have what they call hold click, and it brings up options, and then from there you can select your input type, and you can see voice, and then just talk into your phone and be like, I'll be home in 30 minutes. And then you stop and you hit send, and it'll send it out.
How accurate is it? Is it better than Google 411? Or about?
It's probably about the same. If you talk really carefully, chances are it'll only mess up every once in a while, but it's not perfect.
They are working on getting it better and better.
Yeah.
And one of the new announcements was that also via voice, you can now translate to other languages. One of the things in the I/O video from today was people would say something into the Android phone. You would select the other language that you would like it translated to, and it would speak it back out loud in a different language.
Yes.
Yeah. But it's one of those things where, you know, if it does it wrong, how will you know? You know? So it's still not a replacement for not knowing the language.
When the guy punches you in the face, you'll know.
Like, stupid Android.
So how is it in French?
Actually, the example was in French, and it was perfectly understandable. But it was, where is the closest hospital? Which, you know, is in a French phrase book. So if you spent $2 on a French phrase book, you should already know that one. It's, you know, when you get further on than that, that's, you know, when you're actually trying to have a conversation that, you know, speaking into your droid, waiting for it, having it come back, having the person look quizzically at you. I mean, it's not really a way that to converse. You can get a message across, but actual conversation is probably not going to happen. So.
Probably better than nothing.
Yeah, it's, you know, I'm actually going to Sweden in September, and I sure hope that they have a droid or an Android Swedish translator, because I will buy a Droid phone to have that ability to do that.
There we go. So I can open product search. Here's your used package there. Clicking onto the browser.
So what you did is you just scanned a barcode off of a random item that was in the
And
aisle.
yeah, look, it found it Sensible Foods, Apple Harvest.
And he did a Google search on that, and it
Um,
popped up.
and it really gets more interesting from here. I think barcodes are just the beginning. I'm really interested to see what happens more in sort of the augmented reality world. So we have this thing called Sky Map.
This is something you've seen some of the commercials that they show on the commercials quite a bit.
It'll
Yeah,
identify
here I'm actually looking
constellations.
down.
There's a face recognition app too, for instead of passwords, hold it up and it reads your
Oh, I
face.
didn't know that.
Basically using the location sensor.
Problem is the way to do that is to take a picture of someone and put the picture of someone in front of it, and it can fool the facial recognition.
Another great example, this one will be harder to do on the screen, is this thing called Wikitude, where we take all, it's not we, where this third-party developer takes all the Wikipedia entries that have GPS coordinates associated with them and overlay them either on a map or in this case on the camera. So getting back to sort of the augmented reality thing, now this will be hard to do, but let's see what happens. What was the question, sorry? Is the voice? Yeah, I made your point. Voice search is pretty good. I mean, it depends on. Not get that now. It depends on. Let me do one thing at a time, actually. So I have to kind of do an angle here because I want to do a landscape mode. But you see, I have sort of a little radar thing at the bottom, showing me where there's things, and then it should overlay. Yeah, this is too tricky. Basically, in camera mode, it will overlay. Actually, overlay points and with markers on them. I'm happy to show this to anybody afterwards if they're interested. You know, there's the Pleasanton Mall, and there's San Jose State University and whatnot. So you can be on top and do this and sort of look around and actually points things out for you when you overlays it on top of the camera. So I think there's a lot of interesting stuff that can be done there in the research area and whatnot.
Alright, so that was just kind of a little product tour. I did have a couple other things that I wanted to cover. So basically with your Android OS, you're going to have basically a desktop, and on that desktop you have your icons. With those icons, they link to applications, they can link to websites, they can, I don't think they can link to folders. That's one thing the Android OS does not have a file browser with it. There's apps out there that add them, but their general thinking is if you have photos on your phone, they're going to be stored in the photos, and a photo application is going to know where they're stored, and they're going to pull that up. And it's going to be the same thing with music, with your documents. So there should be no need for an actual file browser.
They are talking about that.
640K, right?
Actually, with 2.2 Froyo, they were talking about working towards being more SD card friendly, about being able to have certain things that a user might want to put on an external card and allow them to put it there and move it. But it is still them working towards it. It's not something that, you know, this will be the first time that they had something like it. It's not something that's been there for a long time.
So for the most part, when you're using the phone, you really don't know where your stuff is actually stored, and quite frankly, I don't really care, because everything works. But anyway, so you have a desktop with these icons, and you can move them around. Also, what you can do with that desktop is you can have widgets. So one widget that I have on my desktop is weather. As soon as I open up my phone, I can see what the temperature is outside and what the if it's sunny or cloudy or whatever. And there's a ton of different kind of widgets. Some of them have news and various other things. Like on his phone, he had the Google search as a widget. Then you have a menu down at the bottom. If you swipe up, the menu comes up and it shows all the applications that you have installed on the computer, kind of like a start menu. And then you can move apps from that menu onto your desktop, or move them off your desktop and remove them. And you, like the Droid has 3 desktops. The HTC phones, I believe, usually have 5 desktops. Kind of depends what phone you have. And I think in 2.2 they're going to make 5, the new standard. Of course, it has a built-in phone. You click on the phone, it brings up a phone. You can dial the number. There's a contact manager, which is automatically synced with Google. So as soon as you get your Android phone, you're going to be required to either put in your Google account, or you're going to create a Google account. And what that does is, when you put in your contacts, they're going to automatically be synced with Google, which is absolutely awesome, because you'll see a lot of phone providers in the past charged for something similar to this. Like, you want to be able to securely back up your contacts, you're going to have to pay $5 a month, which is a bunch of BS. Google's doing this for free. And I can contest that it does work, because early on when I got the phone, it went into a constant reboot. So I wasn't even using it at the time. I just noticed all of a sudden that the boot screen kept coming up, and then it would stay on for a minute, and then all of a sudden the boot screen would come up again. So I had to call Verizon, and it was pretty painless. Of course, I had to use a different phone, but I called them. They ran me through, you know, hold this, type this command in, and it wiped the entire phone. Everything other than what's on the SD card. So all my pictures and music and stuff were still there, but all my apps were gone, all my contacts were gone, and it came up and it told me to sign into Google. I logged in, downloaded all my contacts. It knew what apps I had installed, so it reinstalled all the applications. So the most I lost was a couple notes in a note editor that was storing them in the internal memory instead of on the SD card. So that's really cool. And it has the messenger in there as well, and the messenger kind of works like any kind of one of the newer phones with messenger, where it shows it in a thread per person. So that's pretty nice. It has the full web, well, I shouldn't say full, but it has a really great web browser based on the WebKit functionality, and
Everybody knows what WebKit is, Google Web Toolkit.
yeah, that's what Chrome and Safari and everything runs off of. and it's pretty responsive. It's obviously not going to be as fast as running it on a regular computer, and you do have the small screen, so you're constantly kind of like swaying around and zooming in and out. But
Being a web developer, are you doing apps, or I mean, the web pages so they can on a phone?
I do not personally, and quite frankly, after having this phone, I don't like the websites that are built specifically for mobile. Other than the ones that are like rigid applications, like the Gmail web for web is definitely better than using the Gmail for the desktop. But when it comes to like news websites, it's not functional like their normal websites. So I really prefer that they make a normal website, and the browser does a great job.
Or is it?
I think you can pinch now too.
Yes,
Oh, you can pinch.
you're supposed to be able to pinch as well.
Oh, okay. Because I'm always clicking on the links every time I do the double click. It's like trying to find a spot where there's no
Yep.
link or anything, and I missed. No, I'm off somewhere else.
Yeah. And that still happens to me quite often.
Okay.
But it,
I don't use a web browser at all.
I actually use it. I mean, if I have a regular computer there, I'm going to use it. But if I'm in the car or whatever, I'll pull that up.
How you're driving?
No,
Oh,
it's
okay.
bad.
Just to be clear.
I'm not that good at multitasking yet. And it has the Google Calendar in there. It works pretty snazzy. You have the month view and week view and agenda view and all those kind of things. And that's something that I get a ton of use out of. Another thing that I was just going to show is Pandora. So this kind of give you a sense of the audio on here. So there's the Pandora app on the phone, and does anybody not know what Pandora is? Alright. I pretty much live by this. I actually don't have any music on here other than podcasts. So one thing that's really cool about this phone is it's pretty loud. On my drives to work every morning, I listen to pod shows in my car, and I just use this as the speaker, and it works pretty good.
Good.
Not bad.
And then there's the marketplace, and that's one thing that he really left out of his video. But essentially, it's has a list of applications, and you click on them, and it's not like you have to plug it into the computer. That's pretty good too. Yeah, I was really impressed and kind of blown away with how small the device is and how good the speaker systems are. With the marketplace, you just go on there through this 3G, click install, and it installs the app. So it's really easy and painless. And as far as updates are concerned, if you installed an app and a new update comes out, it'll come up in the notify bar to tell you there's a new update available. You click on it and it downloads the update.
Now, do businesses have to pay for it to be on the market, like the hotel here? Would they have to pay Google to be like for the hotels, or do they have all the hotels in the area for the marketplace?
That's a very good question.
I think it depends whether or not it's free, because there are free apps and there are paid apps.
Yeah.
And if you only make free apps, I don't think you have to pay.
I
Like the marketplace one, that's what I'm considering. Like,
I think we're talking different things. They're talking about the free marketplace for applications.
Yeah.
Whereas there's-
okay.
Yeah, the marketplace is where you get apps. It's Google.
Oh, okay.
I think it's google.com/
Okay.
Android
If you want to
I
pay to
got the
advertise,
marketplace.
yeah, if
that-
you wanted to pay to advertise on that page, probably you could, because Google always let people pay for ads.
now are you saying as a developer if you want to
No,
push your
just as far
application?
as like where, like you wanted to find a hotel in the area.
Well, there
Oh,
are
yeah.
things, for instance, like theirs.
Go back to
You
the-
can go into the thing, you bring up Google, you know, I think there's like a near me or something button.
Yeah,
there's-
And
there's
you can say,
location or
you click
services.
says, well, I'm looking for a restaurant or whatever, you click on it and it'll list them by how far away they are from you.
That's
And
Google
now,
AdWords.
I would imagine maybe there's some way to throw a little money at them to,
In fact, that's how they make their money, is by ad services. So if you went to, I think it's Google Ads. If you wanted to advertise through location-aware searches and have a sponsored link, pretty sure they'd be more than willing to talk to you.
I mean, I think the value of this too is if you're traveling, you know, like you ever travel and you say, you know, if you're in a city you've never been in ever in your life, and you say, I want to find a restaurant, or I got to find where the gas station is, whatever. I mean, it's, you know, it's.
I found one that reviews
Well, there's reviews in there too. I did that myself one morning. You know, I was thinking, well, you know, there's
restaurant.
a
review
Silicon run basically going on, and I says it's good. Our normal restaurant we go Sunday morning was just going to be a hellish thing to get to. So I just kind of went out and think, well, what's there we can walk to? You know?
I've got a practical question.
Mhm.
When you have your phone in your pocket, I mean, how's the locking mechanism so that when the phone rings, you reach in your pocket to grab it, you're not like answering it on the way out of the pocket or hanging up on the person or those frustrating things? Is it
What happens is it comes up, it tells you who's calling, and then there's a slider down here.
okay?
If you slide it this way, you answer it. If you slide it this way, you're gonna push them to voicemail.
Okay. So the slider starts up in kind of a neutral position and go one way or the other?
No, you either start here and you
Oh, I
push
see.
it here,
Or
or
go
you start
there,
here
go
and
there.
you push it there.
Okay, but you can't activate it accidentally by like reaching and hitting something with your thumb or your
I
phone,
haven't-
you know?
I have not been able to do that. And one thing, like the
Okay.
touch screen, is like if you take your shirt and you try to use the touch screen, it's not gonna do anything.
Ah.
It needs to be a finger.
Yeah, it's a transitive touchscreen. It has to have
Yeah.
it has to have skin
Right.
in order for the
And,
pointing.
and
to
people have been able to fool that with like taking food and smearing it on their screen, but
This one doesn't need fingers. Which
yeah.
it's so frustrating. Hanging up on people answering the phone before I even get a chance to see who it is. I'm like,
Oh, actually, this napkin is.
It's a transitive net.
But it's not very good. Like I can't unlock my phone with
with a
this.
napkin. Okay.
So
That's going
I
to
do
depend
it
probably
fast,
on
no, it's not
the
good.
manufacturer of the device, not Android.
Right, and it does depend on the device and what kind of screen they have installed on that.
And he was talking about tethering it to like a laptop.
Mine doesn't
Can you
respond.
do that?
It says you can in 2.2.
Yeah.
The
Two-
latest version.
Potentially.
2.2 is offering it as a feature. Previous versions had third-party applications that attempted to do it. Some with more success than others. Also, it depended on the terms of your phone agreement whether or not it was a good idea to be doing it. Because, yeah.
Because you could use Google Voice and use voice over IP. You know, use it as a like Skype and then tether to.
That's where Windows OS shines. You just plug it in, and if you're running
Through the
Windows
USB.
7 or whatever, it just sees it and boom, you're on.
See, there is USB apps that you can install,
Yeah.
and then you install an app on your computer, and you can get the internet.
Mm-hmm.
The Wi-Fi tethering right now, if I were to want to do it on here, you would have to root the phone, which basically involves, because it's open source, people have taken the source code, modified it a bit, and you pretty much reinstall a different version of the OS on your phone that adds in the Wi-Fi tethering capability. And then there's apps that can tie into that. With the 2.2,
I've used AZ-Link anyhow, so
Yeah.
we're called AZ-Link. It's not. It's a little weird to set up, but it's.
And you actually
You have
got
to-
it working with
Oh, yeah.
Wi-Fi?
No, not with Wi-Fi.
Okay.
No,
Is
just
this
USB.
through
USB.
Yeah, I've been tempted multiple times to root my phone, and then I remember that I need to make phone calls on it. And
Also, it's not my phone. It's not my phone, so that
yeah,
affects it a little bit.
And as you're reading through the things on how to root it, it's like, make sure you do this, or you're gonna.
It's when I was reading the thing,
Yeah.
it sounded reasonably safe because you first of all installed a fail-safe
Right.
boot environment, you know, so that if the thing got totally hosed, you had some rescue environment to allow you to get back in, if you did it right.
Right.
Yeah.
And it also is, you know, every manufactured phone is going to need a little different version for the drivers and stuff, so you need to make sure you're installing the right version of it. And then you always have to worry, well, now when Android 2.2 is going to come out, you're going to have to reroute it.
How does it compare, Android compare with the iPhone?
Depends who you
Yes,
ask.
yeah.
Depends who you ask.
But one thing, like with the desktop and the notification bar and everything, some people who have come from the iPhone say that Android OS is too complicated. They just need something a little more simple. For me, I came into this from, I used to have a big brick phone, and all I could do was make phone calls, and that was it. So when I got this, I grew into it very easily, and I thought it was easy to learn and use. And it gives you a little more customizable options with that, along with full multitasking, which is something the iPhone, they're now saying they're going to have multitasking, but it's not the true multitasking that Android has.
From a developer standpoint, the big difference is if you develop an app that competes in any way with an Apple app, they'll kick you out of the store.
Plus also their
You're
the
done.
Apple App Store. Apple gets 30% off the top of every sale of every download. Plus, there's only one App Store, and your app goes through an approval process in order to get on the phone. And what are the criteria, and whether or not you can guarantee that a well-written app will actually make it to the App Store is unfortunately not guaranteed. So that's the thing about control with Apple versus decentralized. There is an Android marketplace, but you can put it anywhere else and it'll still work.
Apple's
Apple, you're saying one of the distinctions Apple's making is that if you have a co-developed app, an app that runs on both the Android platform and the iPhone platform, they're going to disallow
They'll kick you out of the Apple Store.
What about big vendors? What about people who are trying to make phone apps, mobile apps like SAP or IBM
Well,
or those kind
Google
of
Voice was
Apple-
the big controversy
Apple-
because Google Voice got
You know what I mean?
denied.
They
Apple,
can't do that.
Apple has always been closed distribution. They've always been that way. Steve Jobs has always been that way. He will always be that
Yeah,
way.
I know, but they're big boys too. They could say it to us, but could they say it to the big guys?
They've said it to Google.
Oh, yeah,
that's one of the reasons why there's
They're
Android.
Adobe, you're right. They are saying Adobe. I guess you're right. They are.
Yeah, they have and they will. Now that's Steve Jobs. He's always been like that. He will always be like that.
Well, there was the other thing about the iPhone is there was a puritanical move towards.
Because porn.
Yeah, there were a large amount of apps that were seen to be in or seen by someone or some part of Apple to be indecent that were part and parcel completely removed from the store. So you can with an Apple with the iPhone, your Apple app can be removed from the App Store at any time by Apple for any reason.
You mean that app I've been working on for the last year and a half of drawing pictures of the Mohammed on there? It's not going to be approved?
I wish you luck.
Well, as long as it's not indecent.
Or maybe
They don't
It is if you're in
don't
Islam.
offend the
You have a
Muslims,
great
okay.
creativity, but I don't know
Yeah. I'm doing market study on that first.
The key thing is, from a developer standpoint, Android OS is like a promised land because you have a lot more freedom to do a lot more things, where the iPhone is a lot more locked down and you have to worry about your app being denied. However, the iPhone App Store does have well over 100,000 apps in it. The Android right now has a little over 40,000. So there's still more apps available for the iPhone. However, the Android App Store is growing leaps and bounds. And I think somebody had calculated based on the current growth rate that they'll be at 100,000 by September.
Wow.
So there is a tremendous amount of new development being put into this phone, and I really can see it taking off. You know, like the WebOS and the Android phone are the only two phones that are really good at multitasking. The
Yeah,
Windows Phone 7 is going to be, to me, it's going to be similar to the iPhone, except focused a little more on gaming. So that's kind of what you have as far as smartphones, and I don't know if Symbian is really around in the States.
They're trying to bring it back. Nokia actually had the N900, which ran Maemo, which was a form of Debian Linux. Maemo recently actually merged with Moblin to become Migo. And yeah, exactly. it's like people are sitting around thinking of gibberish words to confuse people.
You're making that up.
No. But they are actually bringing out, Symbian was open sourced, and they're actually bringing out Symbian V3 on Nokia's new phones. Whether it's worth anything at all is to be determined, because it's not out yet. But they're trying to bring it back. And I mean, if I had the choice between Android and Symbian V3, I would go Android. So
Yeah, and then also Samsung created their own OS now as well.
Is it open source?
I don't think so. But I think the main players in this scene, and I'm not sure what's going to happen with WebOS anymore, but the main three I think is going to be the Android, iPhone, and Microsoft's thing. So I think if you want a very pretty scenery, then stick with iPhone. It's going to be simpler to use, it's going to be nice and clean, you're not going to have porn. If you want something that's a little more technical, that you can customize a lot, and you really want to be on the bleeding edge, because there's just so many new things being put on this thing, it's kind of crazy. And I see a lot of the new energy going towards the Android, and the iPhone is kind of what happened last year. So, but that all can change tomorrow, so who knows.
you want to take a quick break to...
Another one? I did one before.
Oh, you did? Well, whatever, then we're cool. Go from 2 ridiculously large chunks to like 17 little chunks. And we'll eventually...
I've been trying to cut it off.
2 years
around
from
an hour.
now, we'll actually have it so that it's right, but...
Alright, so now I'm going to do a little picture show. Well, first I'll just say kind of what I use it for. If you don't have a smartphone and you're kind of thinking, I don't know if I'm going to be able to use it, one of the biggest disadvantages to me is the price. I think I'm paying a little over $80 a month for the basic cell phone plan with a little bit of text messaging and then the internet. So it's really expensive, but these are the kind of things that I use it for, and I use it for browsing the internet. I don't know what I'd do without having email all over the place. I just love that. I never used to be into RSS reading, but now that I have an RSS reader that's always with me, I find that I use it quite a bit. You know, if I'm standing in line at the shopping mart, you know, I just can pull it up, and it's like having my own newspaper, and it remembers what I have read and what I haven't read, and I love it. MP3 player, like I said, I listen to podcasts on a daily basis. Pandora is, I easily go over their 40-hour limit.
Can you quick go, what podcast do you listen to?
I listen to Twit, an Android podcast, Security Now, and Floss Weekly. And then, depending on if I have extra time, sometimes I throw in some other ones that are in the Twit network.
Cool.
The Navigator, I did have a GPS, I think it was a Garmin, and I'd use it for longer trips and stuff where I knew that I wasn't going to be in familiar ground. But after I got this, I started using it a lot more, because it's like, oh, I'm going over to the friend's house, I can't quite remember where it was, or maybe I know where it is, but I don't know exactly what the fastest way to get there is. And even like with this one now, with all the road closings this summer, for a lot of them it will reroute you around those. So I find that I use it a lot. I can't really put an exact number on it. I obviously don't use it to get to work every day, but I do use it quite a bit, and it's very handy just to have it at your palm whenever you need it, because I always have my phone with me. Another thing is Notepad, just basically being able to take notes and save it. And a shopping list is something that I use quite a bit, because I always would forget the shopping list. And now that I have my phone, I usually don't forget that. And then, of course, for phone and message.
I do find it funny that the last thing on your list is
Yeah, I really do not talk on the phone that much, and I message people and they message me, but
Google did recently announce, though, with Android phones, the 3 most popular usages are 1, phone, 2, texting, 3, browser. You know, the Android market is great, but those are still the 3 most popular things that you do with an Android phone.
A lot of those on there have to do with typing and entering text.
yes.
Big question, how is it at that? Your personal.
I think it's pretty good. This phone does have a keyboard
Oh, I see.
on it.
This is the Motorola Droid that we're talking
That's
about.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Show the camera.
But
Now we see your face finally.
the thing is this keyboard is not very good at all.
Okay.
And when I did get
Oh,
it,
yeah.
I would always use the keyboard. And the last couple of weeks, I forced myself to use the soft keyboard to see how good it is. And in landscape mode, it's actually really good. A couple of times I might mistype, but it's pretty good. The thing that I don't like about having it in this mode is then you cannot see anything else on the screen other than typing, which kind of bothers me, and that's the advantage of having the keyboard.
Does autocomplete work on both the regular keyboard and the screen keyboard?
No.
Only works on the screen keyboard?
Right.
Okay.
And that's also kind of a pain point. And then if you have the keyboard in the vertical mode, you can still see the screen, but the keyboard is way too small and not usable at all. So
Are the keys flat or are they kind of rounded in the top?
they're flat, and I think that's one of the main reasons why this keyboard is not. If you want,
That's one thing I don't like about this flat.
yeah, this is.
Yeah, if
You
you're
got
not staring at it.
Fat
not
finger
fixated.
syndrome.
Yeah,
But it's not a lot of that. I mean, it's pretty manageable with your stomach. Like, yeah.
But you feel them.
It's not horrible. No, I'm just thinking about
Yeah.
something bad.
I use my finger.
Yeah.
If there were little bumps on each one, you'd think.
Yeah, exactly.
It's usable, but you're not going to get, 20 words.
Yeah.
It's not gonna-
You're not gonna.
Not going to write your next novel on it.
Yeah.
No.
I used to have a BlackBerry.
Okay.
And
That's
so
what
I
I'm
could,
saying.
that was addicting as a BlackBerry.
Whereas this one, got it raised. But I like my thumb, that may be worse than that.
And that's just good. It's preference.
Yeah.
Yeah. Either way, if you're looking at some of the new Android phones and it doesn't have a keyboard on it, I wouldn't let that deter you if you're grabbing that.
So when I saw the page pulled up, he had a page pulled up, it was like where you could read it is smaller, just the text was smaller.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, yeah.
Hey, and then
You can zoom in or out.
Yeah.
Form factor for the
Yeah,
screen.
that's not legible.
Well, I mean, the droid is 800 by 480 as far as pixels are concerned, so it's pretty good at being able to define something that's readable.
It's not.
I mean, usually your vision at this point is the limiting factor, not the resolution of the screen. As to 5 years ago, it was the other way around, where everybody had like 320 by 240, and you could only see like 3 words, which just blew.
Are they
5
gonna
years
have
ago, my
it so
vision was
you
better.
can-
Yeah.
Does they have like the camera in it so you could have it and actually do it like video? Like
YouTube,
Casey's
you
big
mean?
into video conferencing. So you can sit it there and watch or look at your sister or your brother.
You know, I don't
There
think a lot
was
of people
one
video
new one
conference.
coming out. I
Yes.
saw that they're actually going to put a camera on both sides.
Yes,
Yes.
that would be nice because then you could
That's what they should have done with the iPad.
Yeah,
That was a stupid move. Not
No, it was a smart move because they're going to sell version 2, and the people who bought one are going to buy another just because it has a front-facing camera, and they're going to end up spending $1,200 for essentially the same thing with one extra feature. This is what Apple does, so I'm not really surprised at that.
If we were in
because it'd be
cameras
nice
on
just
both
to
sides
like
of the
call
phone,
and
we'd
pick
have
up
been
the
born
video
with eyes
where
on both
you can
sides.
actually see my sister and my brother.
And then it will, yeah.
Because it's nice to talk with somebody, but it's actually would be nice to see them.
Right. The new phone coming out on Sprint in a couple weeks is going to have a front-facing phone, and it's going to have an app built in, ready to go right
In a
off
mirror.
the bat. I forgot what the
That's another
application's called, but you can use it with Google Talk, and you're going to be able to do a phone conference. They did say you either need to use, because that phone is going to have 4G built in. You cannot do it over 3G, but you can do it over 4G or Wi-Fi.
That's bandwidth stuff. I mean, that's talking about real-time transfer of video on a two-way.
Yeah.
You know, there's latency and bandwidth stuff all over the place, which is why they don't want, you don't want to do it in Appleton. You know, on the,
Unless we get that Google High Speed.
Exactly.
yeah, unless we get but
You
Google
can
High
get
Speed
Google.
isn't wireless. It's just wired. So whether or not they would actually put in 4G as well is another thing entirely. It'd be cool if they did.
So here I'm just going to go through a picture show of some of the cool apps that you can install on your Android OS. The first one is VNC, and I did install this and VNC it into my computer at home, and it's pretty cool because you have your little phone, you could be on the road, and here you have a full power computer right in front of you. The bad thing about it is you are constantly zooming in and out trying to see things. So it's not really usable or practical unless if there's some kind of an emergency, but I just think it's really cool. Of course, you need an SSH client so that you can manage your 20 servers at all times. So there's SSH.
This is
Top for the
this
win.
would be the option right here.
Yeah, I think when the first Linux phones came out, this was one of the first things that every single one of them would have is a way to SSH. And then there's FTP, and this and FTP app also does the SSH FTP, and I've used it before. It's pretty sweet. So you can browse all the files on your computer and upload whatever you want to the server. Another thing, like he showed the barcode scanner. Another really cool feature is, and I can't remember what this kind of. It's not a barcode, but what
It's
it's
a
called.
two-dimensional
It's the
barcode
new-
instead of a one-dimensional.
Okay.
This is actually going to come on like gangbusters in the next 18 months. I say this is going to.
Yeah.
They're going to have every kind of
So that's-
product in the world, and actually applications, not just products, but whole applications are going to reside in these things.
Actually, they were talking about on my blog. There's a dude in France that's doing augmented reality stuff where phones and different cameras can see two-dimensional barcodes like this, and then superimpose things in a three-dimensional space on top of the barcodes because they can recognize first the barcode, but also the orientation of the barcode. So there's some really interesting stuff that'll be happening in the future with that.
Yeah. And how this works, I mean, it's just using the regular camera on here, and it's focusing it in and reading it. And with this example here is they had a business card, and the business card had that barcode on it, and the barcode is storing their information in there. So all they have to do is scan it, and boom, they're able to add it to their contacts. They don't have to type in their name, their number, address, or anything. It's just there. And it's smart enough to know, add it as a contact, dial their number, show it on the map. So I think that's really cool. And this is with that Wi-Fi tether that we were talking about before. Like here it says right there, requires root access. So as soon as you root your phone, you can, all you have to do is start up, and it has a bunch of cool features in it. And I don't think we ever did with the Android 2.2. They're gonna include the Wi-Fi tethering capability in the OS. However, there's still some speculation on because when you do get that update, your provider pushes it out. So like when 2.1 came out, Verizon pushed it out to us, and there's a lot of beliefs that these carriers are going to remove that capability. Either take it right out of the phone or block it or something like that. Or they're going to say, well, if you want to pay an extra $10 a month, you can use our app to do this. So whether or not we're actually going to have Wi-Fi tethering on the Android OS really depends on your carrier.
Yeah, the WebOS, the Palm, Verizon recently opened it up that it comes with the tethering app in it, and you had to pay $10 or something. But about a month ago, they switched that to free, and it's up to I think 5 gigabytes a month that you can use
That is
tethered.
cool.
Well, that was a way to sell WebOS phones too.
Yeah.
They were really trying to move phones, so they said, "Oh, by the way, free hotspots. Please buy a Palm free."
So the capability is there. It's just patents. Here's an example of one of the file browsers, to copy and paste and move files around and browse things. Google Goggles. It's another one of these imaging things.
So just the app name makes me laugh.
It gives you the Google giggles.
Yeah, pretty much.
So like here you can see he's scanning that candy bar, and with their image recognition software, it's going to analyze that and see that that's a word there, and then it'll do a Google search on that word.
I thought it was just going to automatically add the calories to your butt.
that comes in the next. That's 2.3.
That wouldn't be a feature. We need the version where it runs off the
Those would be
calories.
female phones.
I like that.
But and it also does like location kind of thing. So like if you're outside the hotel and you took a picture, well they have all their streets.
Yeah, Google Street View.
Google Streets, they have all those images so they can match it with that and be like, oh, you're talking about the suites and blah blah, here's your location and here's the things around you. So I think that's kind of where they're going with that. It's still very, it doesn't work the best. Kind of, it's worse than the speaking one, but it's something that they're working on. The Google Sky Map, which she showed before, which is really cool, and I can't wait. I got this phone in November, so it's been the winter, and I haven't really been able to play with it too much outside, but I can't wait till...
So when the next version of Android comes out, you can put it on your phone? Or no?
They said all Android phones should be able to do 2.2, including the G1, which is old. So, but whether it actually happens and whether the
Right.
carrier actually pushes it,
Right.
and when the carrier pushes it is another thing entirely.
Right.
Can you put it on personal?
If you root your phone.
You typically can, but you have to find one kind of for all the phones are a little different, so you have to kind of get, there's probably, the odds are there's some developer out there who will leak it out. And, you figure out how to, some instructions on how to install
I know
it.
you have contracts with these phones. Is it best like your contract if you were to do it?
Probably you're bricking their drinks.
If you brick it, you may get to buy a new phone.
Yeah, and
probably
they're
at
not
full
gonna
price.
support it.
No.
So,
Or you could go in and renew your contract and negotiate with them for a new late model phone
but
and have them do it for you.
Wasn't that the premise with that Google selling the phone directly though? Was that you could, and I seriously consider this,
Right.
but I'm still in the contract, so I'm not moving on it yet, but I have a provider, I have a SIM from that provider for my existing non-smartphone. I could go to them, buy their bargain basement unlimited internet for their non-smartphone package, which is significantly cheaper than their smartphone version of the same thing, because there's a usage factor. But I've got that SIM, so if I pay that lower price, go buy the $500 Google version of the same thing, put the SIM in the long run, it'd be more expensive to pay $500 up front for the device, but after 2.5 years, you're
Yeah.
saving. Because they're getting you for 30 instead of 10 every month.
By the way, if you are thinking of doing that, do it soon.
Yeah, I think
They
they're gonna
are
stop.
stopping selling the Nexus One directly, I think. They are, just because people weren't used to seeing the price of an unsubsidized phone.
Right.
First of all, they don't realize that even if you got your phone for 99 cents, it still cost $150 because you're paying through it
Over 2 year
through your
contract,
monthly
yeah.
fee and your contract and your 2-year
I've already
agreement.
gone, but
So-
I'm ready,
Yeah. So
but
the
numbers anyway.
as far as whether they're going to do that in the future and how long they're going to be selling the Nexus One, do a lot of research and make the decision soon, because you might not be able to get a Nexus phone forever.
Right.
Another thing is GPS. So obviously because it has a navigator, it has GPS capabilities. So there's a ton of different apps out there to be able to triangulate your position, and then you can do tracking and stuff. So it's almost like having, $300 GPS device. So if you're into outdoors, it's pretty cool. I found in use, when I've tried to use it, the GPS is a little finicky. There's certain times where it just will not work. It won't find my location.
Does it triangulate off the towers or off satellites?
So it's actual GPS.
I think.
They
I
It
think
also
it
has
can-
a real.
I
think
thought it
it
was
can
off
do
of
both.
towers.
all
Isn't it
new,
off towers?
all new
Towers?
cell phones have to have the
Yeah.
GPS.
Well, yeah. The thing was when the Droid announced turn-by-turn directions, GPS companies tanked in the stock market. Publicly traded GPS companies
Yeah.
basically this announcement basically meant that it was over for dedicated GPS devices.
Like if I turned it on right now, I can't see the sky, so it would say, okay, it would probably see the Wi-Fi, the various networks it can see, and it could figure out a rough, idea where you are.
It would get you down to about 30 meters or so, or
Yeah, it's not really that. Yeah, usually I think it's more like about a quarter of a mile.
Quarter of a mile.
Like
100 meters.
On my,
Yeah.
on my BlackBerry, somebody told me that it's also partially your carrier, what they do, whoever your service provider is. Because mine said that on Google Maps it's like good within 2,300 meters. I'm going, half a mile or more. But it's always showing me in the middle of a river, but not in the river.
Right. No, but if I could get this, if I get the GPS, if I actually have view of the sky, that's pretty good. That's good.
Yeah. When the GPS is working, it's pretty much head on. But there's just certain times where I don't know if the satellites aren't aligned correctly or whatever, but you can't use it. So if you're out in the woods and you're lost,
Well, even my dedicated GPS unit does that.
Okay.
It just loses track of the satellites.
okay, so it's
It
gonna
only picks up like 3 satellites. It needs like a good 5 satellites
Right.
to give you an accurate phone call. So
right.
it
And
doesn't-
they have apps out there that'll tell you exactly how many satellites and what the strength is. So you just kind of got to be smart about if you're really depending on it. But for normal everyday use, it's robust enough. And they're building the GPS into a ton of different things in the app. So like that weather widget that I have, if I were to drive down to Milwaukee, it's going to grab my GPS location and update my weather based on where I am.
Where's it getting the points, all the data points, the longitude, latitude, and roads and everything on the Android?
The roads is all
Because I know it's a card on a dedicated GPS. It's a card, and you have to update that card.
No.
I think you get a Google Maps via
Google
via
Maps, it's
3G.
all get it through the network.
Yeah.
But you can there are other map programs you can download, which of course aren't as sophisticated in many respects, but there are a couple different types of deals you can use where
Like
it'll
AAA might
either,
have
there's some that
like
will,
TripAdvisor.
where you can download a whole region explicitly, or else some will cache the area. So if I'm going to go drive, over in Colorado from here to there, you can actually kind of run yourself over there while you're on the network, and then when you do get there, it will work.
So the big factor, or the question is, who is updating their maps, their map points more frequently? Is Google updating theirs?
Don't know. The problem with the Google one though is that if you are out in the middle, I had that experience where I went up to Peshtigo Harbor, where that is, it's like in the middle of nowhere.
The bustling metropolis.
There was
of
nothing.
Peshtigo.
No,
Yeah.
we have no Peshtigo would be bustling to where I was, but the thing is, there was no network. So I had a GPS with a little dot on it, on a screen. There was nothing. So that's why I went and I said, well, even if I don't have the best map in the world, I want some map.
Okay, so you can download something, so even if you don't get a signal from the tower, you still
Yes.
have, you still have your map.
Yes.
Okay.
I've downloaded 2 different ones, and yeah.
Does the GPS, do you have to have it on your, like, dashboard to navigate, or can you have it on your seat?
I just have mine on my seat.
Really?
Well, that may be part of your problem then, because the
Yeah.
roof will block.
It'll definitely work better. It will definitely
Yeah,
work
through
better
the
if you
window.
can get it up
Yeah.
within your windshield
Yeah.
area.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do the same
I
thing.
haven't had much of a problem. I've only had a problem once while driving where it wasn't. I had more of a problem when I was out in the middle of nowhere in the woods.
It doesn't go through trees.
But
Yeah.
Trees soak it up real good.
I was trying to get a Mexico card for somebody for their GPS unit. I found out that all the GPS units that are designed to work with North American cards will not even take a Mexico card. You have to get one that's manufactured for.
Well, those deals I download, like a lot of them, they use like
those are-
OpenStreetMap and
those
stuff
are on
like
the-
that. And they've got
Yeah.
the entire planet.
Right. These
you
are
know?
on dedicated. These are on dedicated
Yeah.
GPS units.
Right.
They're and a lot of those companies are notorious for not updating their maps. I mean,
Yeah.
some of those maps, even if you get the updated map, is still could be 5 years behind in some sections of the
Yeah.
country.
Yeah.
So
Well, I know Google has a traffic app that not only will they show you will they show you the road that you're on, but how busy the traffic
Well, that's on
is.
the navigate. Yeah, it's on the navigation thing. Yeah, you
So-
get
so-
that on.
So if that tells you, how updated it is, they're also telling you if there's congestion on the road that you're on, which
So that's why this Android,
Yeah.
the apps from Android will have it all over the dedicated GPS units.
Right.
Because those things are just notorious.
At least if you're in an area, if you're in an
Well,
urban area
yeah.
where you're
Like
in a
Chicago,
normal, where you're in a
Green Bay.
where you've got decent
Right.
coverage, which is most of the time where most people are. But if
When
you
you-
happen to be off in those mountain trails,
But that's when you really need the GPS.
you're not gonna.
Trails.
You aren't gonna have anything.
Well, when you see the satellite view, like on this application, then you know the unit must be looking at satellites and picking up satellites. And if you're under the trees and you click satellite view, it'll show you which satellites you're actually picking up. So most cell phone systems do use the radio towers, and they're not very accurate. But if you do have a satellite view, you're using the satellites, and then you're down to about a 10-meter GPS range.
Because if you're in the Olympic
Accuracy.
Peninsula across from Seattle, there's no cell phone towers there. So basically, if you're in the park, you're not going to get cell phone coverage. But I'm wondering if you
Satellite.
the GPS.
If you put in a program, it may not have. I haven't had time to investigate them. They're getting to be some. I forget the names of them. There are people actually trying to develop real bona fide, like, Tom Gurman type free Linux apps. And they're gaining some good traction. So there are getting to be some. But there are some ones, if you don't want, if you aren't concerned about all the navigation features and all that stuff, at least it's, there's a map and it shows you where you are. And that's something to work with.
one of those projects is OpenStreetMap.
Yes.
It's a project where they're trying to get out of being dependent on a proprietary app or a proprietary source for this information.
But that's the map part. I'm just saying. But there are some out there that have the full. You would swear they're trying to make a ronified GPS application. And besides, it probably uses OpenStreetMaps or something like that for its maps, but they have the whole little view, showing you down the street and all the stuff with the talking, the whole, stuff like that.
See, the problem that you were talking about before is when you're in an area where you have no cell towers, you can still receive the signals from the satellites. That's not a problem. But all you'll have is a black screen with a dot on it, and that dot may move as you're walking around, but it's not receiving the data for the coordinates for the streets, and
So if you had
that's
a map,
coming from
if
the
you
cell
had a
towers.
map there,
If you had a map
regular
loaded,
map, yeah.
if you had the map loaded on the cell
Sure.
phone, then you wouldn't have a problem.
Okay.
Then you have like a standard GPS there.
Okay.
But you don't have real-time data that's
Yeah.
coming through. You've got a
Talking about the they have pure quiet with no airplanes, no sounds, no just wildlife, just nature.
Unless you brought
Just
your
the-
droid, then you can listen to music.
Well, that's it. I'm gonna fly my airplane over that place then.
All you'll get is the ringing in your ears from all the noise you've been hearing.
Alright. So with the iPhone, you have the iTunes store. With Android, it comes stock. At least most of them come stock with the Amazon MP3 store, and it all goes through the 3G, so you can go in, say what you want to buy, and it downloads it.
And as of today, and the Android marketplace will be selling music too.
Really?
Really?
And they will be streaming your current non-DRM music collection to your Android phone
From your computer?
from your computer.
Ha.
So we'll see how long Amazon MP3 stays around after that.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is DRM free or what.
Yeah, it's MP3s. They're DRM free.
Okay. Yeah. I haven't personally used it other than you can go in there and listen to little clips. So sometimes when somebody wants a song, you can pull it up. Another thing is video. So you have YouTube. There's an app on there called TV.com, which has a ton of the CBS things. Like the other day I was watching Price is Right on my phone. It was going over to 3G. One thing about the video is the quality is kind of crappy. Considering how nice the screen is, the actual picture is not very clear. But if, you're stuck and that's all you have, it is usable.
Do they have Hulu?
No.
'Cause that would be nice watching, like Stargate Universe and stuff.
Yeah, I wish.
Can you do Netflix on
No.
it?
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm just asking. I've never tried it.
With all this development, all that stuff is probably pending. It's probably all on its way.
Yeah.
They're talking about HTML5 as a potential source of delivery
I think.
because they open sourced VP8 yesterday.
Open source. Oh, is that
VP8,
the one that
Onto's
Google
VP8,
is?
yeah.
But
Because Onto was the company that created Theora, but Theora was like version 2 of the video the video content streaming. VP8 was their 8th version, their 8th generation of that technology.
Wow.
Google bought Onto for like $150 million and open sourced VP8 because they want, because they own YouTube and they $150 million is worth it because
Oh, yeah.
if they save 20% in bandwidth on every YouTube video that gets streamed, then they make their money back.
But doesn't it have patents, that HTML5?
It's pretty open, is my understanding.
Okay. Is there a big controversy?
Yeah. So I think that video is going to improve. Like it has to. And
Yeah, what should Hulu on
Well,
here?
Flash 10.1 is set to be released, I think, at the end of June
Right.
for the mobile devices, which means you'll get Hulu then.
And-
Once the carrier
That's gonna be
blocks
fun.
it.
And Adobe, now with VP8 being open sourced, has said that they're probably going to be using VP8, and Firefox is using VP8, and Opera is using VP8, and Chrome is using
yeah,
VP8.
and that's what we need.
So that's probably going to help out on mobile.
Because there's questions about OP and
Yeah.
possibly
The
going
OP
into lawsuits.
And what they said at Google I/O yesterday or today is that the Theora people are behind this. But, whether or not they actually are behind this is something we'll find out.
Yeah, because the patents, that's the things that they're talking about. Not unless the Supreme Court sides with the kind of users. They say the software patents are null and void.
And then Google Voice is something that's really cool. I know somebody mentioned where you can just stream your calls over kind of VoIP kind of thing. And the voicemail has where it'll email you the voicemail
Yeah.
and it'll transcribe it in words.
It's pretty funny sometimes.
Voice to text.
And I find it absolutely hilarious that Verizon now came out with I think they call it visual voicemail, $5 a month, and it's kind of the same thing, is being able to actually click on your voicemail and listen to it. But with Google Voice, you can get that absolutely free. But it does, you do need to be invited right now. So.
But effectively, it's going to use up those minutes, though, isn't it? Because it's going to have to forward the call to.
No, it's free. I can call.
No. Well, I know that part is free, but you still have to call. It still has to forward the call to Google somehow, doesn't it?
As far as I know,
You actually choose a new number, and
Yeah.
Google eats the cost on that. I don't know how they're going to turn that one around, but
I don't know, I think
pick a
that's
Well, but your
number.
cell phone from your end, though.
What my daughter
Yeah,
does is
okay.
she gives out her Google telephone
Yeah.
number,
Yeah.
and
Take
people
minutes.
call it, and then she's got a way of getting her she put her Google number on her friends list
Yep.
for Verizon, and so everything that comes through Google
Oh,
is
sure.
free.
Okay,
so
sure.
it doesn't
You
chew
do
up any
that.
minutes.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other thing, that it'll come in as the call from your number.
Right.
So it's cool. Slide screen is, and this kind of goes back to that. Okay, I have a desktop that has icons, but why is the first thing I see when I open up my phone a bunch of icons? If you want to be the kind of person where I want to be able to see data, I want to see something new and fresh and relevant, this is kind of what this is meant for. So instead of just seeing icons, you're going to start up your phone and you're going to see the weather and any news that is coming in, your calendar reminders. It's going to pull the things that matter to you. So it's something you can install. Wave Secure is, it does a couple different things. One of them is backup, so it'll do a complete backup of your entire phone, and restore. It has a lockdown right now. And another thing is, if you lose your phone, you can remotely say, hey, where is my phone? And then you can say, shoot, it's actually in somebody else's hands, wipe it, and it'll completely take all your data off of it. So, and
As opposed to the iPhone, where Apple has that ability innately with your phone.
That sucks.
That's Steve.
Yeah.
what I really want to see is something where it just encrypts everything on it. So, like your password would decrypt everything on it, so you don't even have to worry about having to wipe it. But maybe we'll see that sometime down the road.
Oh, Dropbox.
Yeah.
Dropbox is on here.
That's awesome.
And you may wonder, well, why would I ever want to go look at a PDF or something on my phone, which you can do. It'll open it up and you can view it. But a lot of people that use it say that it's really handy. You never thought that, oh, I really needed that document. Didn't have your computer, you can pull it up. Another really cool thing is you can be taking pictures, and as you're taking them, it's going into your Dropbox, and boom, right up in the cloud. Now it's down on your desktop, and it's backed up. You don't have to worry about losing your photos. So there's cool things with that. Another very popular app for mobile is Evernote, and it's just a really cool app to be able to take different notes through sound, pictures, and text stuff. I personally haven't used it, so. And then there is obviously gaming things out there. I was looking at a lot of different genres. Basically, any kind of game you want, there's something out there for you. The graphics, I think, a lot of the games they do say kind of lag a little bit. It's not fastest, and this is something that I think 2.2 will probably improve. And as time goes on, it's going to improve. So as a gaming platform, the Android initially wasn't exactly the best, but I know that there's a racing game that I was really considering buying, but it was $10, so I didn't. But you know, you could be sitting here in your seat, and it's going to use like the tilt to the phone, and you're driving along. I think that's pretty cool.
Accelerometers are fun.
Yeah, like there's so many things that you can do with the touch screen, with puzzle kind of games. There's some first-person shooters. So
$10 is only like 4 gallons of gas.
Yeah, but
and if you have to go in your car and do that, you know, just spend that $10.
frankly, I've bought one app for this so far. Everything else I've gotten is free. And that's another thing, like if you look at the App Store for this, I think it's well over 50% of the apps in the marketplace are free, whereas on the iPhone only about 25% of them are free. And I really like free things.
Yeah, but that's bad news for developers.
Well, look at Linux. You know, I
Who's
didn't
making
pay
money off? Who's making money off of Linux?
a lot of people.
Support people.
Novell is making a fair amount of change. Red Hat's making some money. IBM is pretty much in.
Are they just selling support?
Well,
Or are
a
they
lot
actually
of people do. For a lot of people, Linux administrators make more money than Windows administrators if you can find the job. As time goes on, that this area has been a little bit more difficult to have Linux administration openings, but it's been proven that a Linux administrator will make more money than a Windows administrator.
Because they
so yes,
administer more boxes too.
yeah, they can get more done.
Yeah.
And another thing, like a lot of the apps have advertisements in it, kind of like the Google AdSense. And they'll have like a little bar here. They're not obtrusive at all, but it's one way to give you an app. They're gonna make money off of those advertisements, and you get it for free.
Like Bubble Box and all those game centers online. They're free.
Yeah,
There's a lot of ads.
and I think that's a great compromise.
Can't wait for the Bonzi Buddy Android app. Purple Gorilla. Never mind.
And a lot of the apps too, they'll have it where here's the app. If you want to donate, here's the same app, but it'll be $1. So if you really like it, it's kind of on the honor system. And I think that's a good way to do it. So we've been talking about hardware the whole night, so hopefully we'll just kind of breeze through this a little bit. One of the main phones that came out and a lot of people grabbed right away, the first kind of mainstream phone that was available was the HTC Dream or G1, which was on the T-Mobile. And then they came out with HTC Hero, which was available on a couple different carriers. It was also pretty popular. The Nexus One, which you mentioned before, is one that was provided by Google. It was actually created by HTC but branded under Google as this open phone with no contracts and very flexible on what you can install on it from the get-go. So it was kind of an experiment that they did, and now they're kind of saying that they're not going to do that anymore. The Droid Incredible, and this is on the Verizon network, and I would say at this point in time, if you were to get an Android phone, this would probably be the one to get. Because you're looking at a beautiful screen, 8-megapixel camera, a gigahertz processor, and 512 megabytes of RAM. The Droid has like 300 and something for RAM, and only a 500 and some megahertz processor.
Oh, 32 gigabytes.
Although if you really like Sprint and 4G, there's the Evo.
Right, and that's the thing.
But it's not
Like
here
I
yet.
said, if you're gonna buy a phone right now,
Yeah, because it's not here just yet.
this is the one that I would jump on. But you also could argue that Verizon does have a wider range.
It's the network. Yeah.
And
And also 4G, they don't have very much. I mean, there's
Oh,
4G, but it's not like 4G everywhere.
no, it's extremely limited right now. So, and it does not sound like anytime soon this year it's going to happen. It's going to be more like next year we may be able to think about getting it in this area. But there's no plans for 4G in this area anytime soon. So, and I take my Verizon phone up in the woods and stuff, and when you get way up there, you're not going to get any internet. But it's actually really, I'm pretty satisfied. Like, I'll have Pandora on as I'm driving to work between Green Bay and Appleton, and it doesn't glitch out at all. You know, it's streaming music as you're driving. I think that's pretty impressive.
Does Verizon have coverage west of Wausau in Edgar, Wisconsin?
Not very good.
Okay.
That's one big dead zone.
Yeah. Western Wisconsin is tough to get.
Yeah.
US Cellular is the same.
Their
You go too
map,
far west of. Oh, that's right.
Their map shows that most of it should have, but in practice I couldn't get internet.
It also depends how many miles away you are from Highway 29.
Yeah, 29.
Yeah.
You gotta
Because
have
Highway
to-
29 is
you gotta be
okay.
within 1 mile on
Yeah.
either side of 29. So your Edgar might make it,
Oh, yeah.
but that's about it.
Just drive on Highway 28.
Not 1 mile is too.
And then here we have the Droid, which is what I have. And Verizon kind of has an interesting marketing where they're coming out with simpler phones that are marketed towards normal people, and then they have this Droid brand. So like this was the Droid Incredible, this is the Motorola Droid, and that's kind of more towards the technical people who want to be able to really customize their phone. That's more for these kind of people, which I think is an interesting marketing strategy. And this was the first one that they came out with in that. They also have the Droid. I'm blanking. I think
The
it was-
Iris?
The Iris, yeah, which I think was a version of the Hero.
That's what I've heard. That's what this is.
And where does the Desire fall? HTC Desire. You know?
HTC Desire. Is that out yet?
Well, that's the one U.S. Cellular is going to be
Okay.
handling, and well,
So
it's
might-
going to be released, I
I
think, in
might
July.
have it on a slide.
Yeah,
we'll
I think that's
see.
coming on July.
And the one thing that I can say about this phone, because I've had it for a couple months, well, more than a couple months, since November, and I do tend to be a bit rough on my phones. I do have like normally I have an outer casing on this plastic thing, and I actually busted the top one and cracked. I've dropped it on concrete floors before, from like this where it like flipped down, and it's very durable. Trying to do, like, some of the apps have been able to freeze the phone before, but normal everyday use, it has never frozen on me. It's only when I try to some kind of wacky game or something, it'll crash. But it's
So
very
can these
far.
can those phones pick up like networks like our network?
Yeah, they're Wi-Fi
Right.
capable.
Yes.
So basically, it can find out where you're at, or close to where you're at, within like 100 or the Wi-Fi range of a.
Yeah.
So that's so somebody can. Big Brother is watching.
Yeah, well, I mean, you also have the GPS in it, so they can really pinpoint you. But,
It's kind of scary.
one
You
thing.
know where you're at.
Well, yeah. So the thing about a smartphone, the more tech you have in your pocket, the more tech can be used against you.
Yeah.
Well, one of the reasons they were requiring GPS so that when somebody needed a 911 call, they could locate them.
Yeah. Which, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always.
Might as well make it
There's
useful
slant
for you.
both ways.
Yeah.
I mean, the general rule is if you have the law after you, you're just going to want to discard all the
Or at least take cell phones
Yeah.
flying.
That's
Or
the
the-
first thing, you know?
The Faraday
If
pack.
you're, if you're the paranoid type, yeah, let's take the battery out. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, turning it off is not good enough.
Is it Stallman? Just talk to Richard Stallman about that sort of stuff.
Roll up into aluminum
Yeah.
foil, or if you're really
Put on your
paranoid.
tinfoil hat and go for it.
And one thing, I don't know if other people have noticed this, but I found like general web browsing has actually been faster on 3G than on Wi-Fi. And I'm not sure why. Like if I do an actual download, it'll download a file faster. But something to deal with the connection.
Well, it depends upon how good your 3G. I don't know if the 3G is always the same speed though either.
Right. In the city,
Yeah.
It's just
the
that
3G has
if I'm in
been
a big
faster.
city, 3G's awesome.
Right.
Around here, not so much.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can you
That's
use
also borderline.
3G
My
as your,
experience.
Yeah, like if I'm watching BBC, it's
For your-
fucking fast.
modem for your phone,
Appleton
for
now.
your laptop?
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
can?
That's the tethering.
Yeah, that's
That's
2.2.
good.
That acts as a hotspot.
So it can pull
Yeah.
your modem.
At Google I/O today, they actually connected an iPad via an Android phone. Yeah.
Yeah, because AT&T's network is so amazing. And then we have the Motorola Backflip, and this is Motorola is coming out with their Moto Blur, which is something that they add on to the Android OS, and it links like Facebook and stuff in it. personally, I don't think I'm a big fan of it, and I haven't read good things on it. The HTC has, what do they call it? I'm blanking. Sense. Yeah, and that's all HTC phones come with Sense built on top of us, which I've heard really great things about the Sense, and all that does is modify the UI a little bit. Which is another cool thing about this Android OS, is with these the Motorola Droid, is it's a stock Android. They don't really modify it a whole lot. But with HTC, they have their Sense on top of it, which modifies it a little bit and makes it a different user experience. So if you're looking at a Droid phone, Android phone, you can kind of think about how you want it to work. If you're big in Facebook, which I won't suggest anymore.
If you value your privacy.
Yeah, they just opened up like 5 years of my photos to the public, so as far as I'm concerned, they can screw themselves. But yeah, and then you have the Devour, which is, I think these are running on different networks. Like this one might be on AT&T, and this one's going on the Verizon. So, and those are kind of meant for somebody who's not as techy to use. You have the Samsung Moment, which I've heard, pretty good stories about it. This was...
Screen's not as nice.
Yeah. When it came out, it was one of the ones with a faster processor and stuff. And this is the big one here that's going to be coming out in a couple of weeks on the Sprint network. And it's going to have 4G, and it's going to be on the Sprint network.
Except if you went to Google I/O, because they gave 5,000 of them out today.
Which is just crazy.
How do you do it to?
You had to register for Google I/O, and I'm pretty sure you have to actually have code, because it's a developers conference. So it's not just a give me a free Android phone conference, although it has been for the last 2 years.
But the big thing that excites me about this is the screen. It's a little bit wider than the standard phone.
Big screen.
This is not to
It's a 60-inch screen. iPad can suck it, man. I want one of those.
Mount that one.
Like when they initially released it, some people were like, "Well, I don't know if it'll fit in my pocket and stuff." But like what I've noticed when I did use an iPad, the big selling point for me is why maybe this device would be useful. This tablets in general is the screen real estate, because now you're going to have this nice touch screen and interactive gyroscopes and stuff in it. So I think one of the restraints that I find on this phone is the screen sometimes just isn't quite big enough. And this is going to be a release with a bigger screen. I'm really interested to see what they're able to do with that. And
Speaking of that, are there any Android-based form factors that are closer to the iPad yet?
coming.
They're working on it.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, there's also well, actually, the Nook is bigger.
Nook.
The Nook is an Android
Mine's more
device.
available.
Yeah, and then there's also a Odroid is a device made for gaming, so it's a slightly bigger screen. But I think the Nook is the largest official Android device right now.
Because with games, that's going to be pretty awesome. If you could do with the Android games.
Yeah, they're coming.
With like an iPad.
So, like, this is going to have your 8 megapixel camera, a gig
Front facing.
of RAM, 512 megabytes of RAM, and a gigahertz processor. So it kind of has similar specs to the Incredible, but it also has that front-facing camera along with a bigger screen. So this is going to be a pretty awesome phone. Some other phones that are going to be coming out eventually. I didn't bother to put dates on here because you never know, they'll probably end up changing them and stuff. But Sony has been working on a couple different phones for Android. Dell is planning on releasing a pretty big line. And I think they might be AT&T exclusive.
That's nice.
Great.
from what I read.
I mean, yay.
Yay, yeah.
But
Oh, what? We gotta run out.
they have a couple different form factors, and I think they're probably going to market them towards different use cases, and all at different selling points. But it's interesting that they're getting into the cell phone
Yeah, it
business.
is, because probably when you change the battery in the Dell, it'll ask you for a password that you don't have. Assuming that because you're trying to change a battery, you've stolen the phone from someone. That's how their laptops work. You try to put in a hard drive in it. And have to have the original serial number, password, and
boy.
everything that came with the unit. So if you buy one, yours are screwed.
I had the
Well-
Dell Axiom when that first came out. When I instead of going with my Palm, I went with the Axiom to try it out. My Dell, and it was a piece of crap.
Good old accents.
We'll see how the reviewers handle those when they actually come out.
Yeah.
They could have learned.
The Samsung's working on a new Android phone. Acer is also going to be releasing a phone. And here we get to the tablets. So this is one,
Sorry.
Dell maybe will actually make a decent tablet for Android, and I think that would be pretty good. ICD Ultra. So I'm actually shocked that you said that there's one that might be only $100.
It's
Might.
Marvell.
Again, there's a picture. The picture still has a circuit board sitting outside of the
Yeah.
device.
Okay.
So, but yeah,
Oh, I did see
Yeah.
that.
Marvell's
it's
okay.
Marvell. You know, Marvell made the plug
Plug
computers, which are $100 plug PCs, because Marvell makes the chips. So they're they don't have to make the chip and then get that middleman thing happening.
Yeah,
But
it's
still,
similar.
I'll believe the $100 tablet when I see it.
Because they have the
The
market.
$100 tablets for the kids.
Yeah,
That thing that guy.
I mean, everybody.
they're the OLPC.
Yeah.
The,
Wire rings through one side cages.
Yeah.
That's only for third row.
But I wonder how the batteries are for
Comes with
Well,
brands.
for $100, you don't get to choose the battery life.
I'll
it.
plug
Like
it.
double A's.
It may be. You never
Really
know.
long extension.
Sorry, anyway. Tegra. Woo.
The thing is with this is there's almost every computer hardware manufacturer out there is currently working on the next iPad killer. So I think there's going to be a huge variety of things to pick from, and it's just going to be a matter of finding the one that's the best price, the best value that everybody else is going to get, and that's going to be a really good device.
And it-
But
it's-
the market, that 100,000 apps and Android's 100,000 apps coming,
Yeah.
that sounds like the battleground.
Well,
Yeah.
the other thing, because Google I/O happened this day 2 of Google I/O happened today, and they announced Google TV. Google TV runs Android, and so they're putting the Android OS on set-top boxes that'll be able to do regular TV, YouTube, internet TV, and all sorts of things, plus Android apps. Plus, any Android device via Wi-Fi can be used as a remote.
Plus your machine the washing machine.
Exactly. The pluses are starting to add up, right?
That's Linux. It runs on everything, including washing machines and
They have
toasters.
LG centrifuges that run
That's
off
right.
the network.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not too far out.
Yeah.
The tablet kind of style computer, there's also a ton coming out with Windows 7 on it,
Yeah.
which will be interesting to see because I know like HP had their Slate, I
Yep.
think they're calling it. They're going to do Windows 7, and now all of a sudden they grabbed WebOS, and they're thinking that they're going to port that onto that because they're having
But
troubles with
I heard
Windows
it's
7.
Free or buy.
WebOS is going to go to printers too.
Yes.
It's going to be it's going to be ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because
OS on printers, I could see that.
Which
Yeah.
WebOS is also built off of Linux.
It's gonna take 10 minutes for your printer to
So-
boot up.
But free or Windows is kind of like,
Well,
whatever
yeah.
go with free. And like you said, you like free apps. It's like,
Yeah.
it's what most people are going to go with. So I think Android's going to be the bigger market than Windows.
The question is freedom versus convenience.
Yeah.
There's people on both sides.
Yeah.
And obviously, we're a biased jury, being a Linux users group.
you think?
So obviously, when you ask a lot of people about iPhones and the iPad and the iPod Touch, there's a lot of really cool things that they can do. And for some people, the limitations in the closed nature and the totalitarian regime and all that doesn't bother them because they can go to YouTube, they can update Facebook, doesn't matter. So, you know, it's all convenience versus privacy versus power versus freedom. Everybody has different views, and different people have, you know, value different things.
Frio went out in today's economy, though.
Yeah.
An open market, in
Yeah,
theory.
open market.
But, you know, Apple can charm people. So, here's
Yay.
a list of stuff that should be coming out with Android 2.2. I didn't get a chance to look at all the Google stuff that came out today, so I grabbed this off of Wikipedia last night.
When I post this online, I'll put the new stuff on with this stuff.
Okay, that'd be cool. So this might be a little dated.
You're pretty much on.
Yeah, like I grabbed this off at like 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
And they had updated it
so
from the
you
day
know-
before. Like with the Google, is it
Yeah.
OIO?
Froyo.
Um,
Oh, Google I/O. Yeah.
Google
All
I/O
that,
that has gone on yesterday and today. There's been a ton of announcements.
Yeah. One of the things they were talking about is they're really liking the browser, and so they're talking about the ability to access the camera and the accelerometer as part of the browser is something that's coming. Also, user interface improvements are something that's huge in 2.2. You have the ability via a PC to send a Droid app to your Android machine, and it will take it. Or you can, via Google Maps, you can say, send this map to my phone or to my Android device, and when you get to your phone, or if your phone is next to you, it'll bring up Google Maps and bring up turn-by-turn directions and start you where you need to be instead of open, go, you know, and so they're trying to remove clicks, they're trying to remove hassle, they're trying to make life easier, they're trying to make life more convenient.
The accelerometer, does that work like in a car, so like if you're moving? Because it would be nice is if they turned off the texting so you can't text while you're driving.
I know that I think there have been apps that'll actually, for like street racers, they'll actually tell you how many G's you're pulling when you're doing turns.
Because
By using your accelerometer. I mean, I'm not a big street racer, but I know that there are a variety of apps that are built around giving you that information.
Because they should turn off the texting while they're driving. Because
Good luck.
basically, the cell phone providers can do that. They
But
can
then
say
what if
like,
you're the passenger?
so you can't drive until you stop.
Or how
So-
about an app that warns you that the person in front of you is texting, or the person that's coming toward you is texting?
I like
You
that.
know?
I mean,
Why can't you
They're looking
should
at
just
ball
put a
cats.
fuzzbuster in there and
They have
Very
like
miles
two
per
types
hour.
of community where you can say, oh, I saw a cop, and then everybody else who's using that can see, oh, I saw a cop.
so it's beyond just flashing your lights.
Yeah.
a little high tech, that's all.
Um, but Adobe Flash is going to be coming out. Finally, you're going to be able to install apps onto the cards. So one thing, like this only has 512 megabytes of internal memory, and that's where all your apps need to be installed. But with 2.2, you're going to be able to install it on that expandable, which this comes with 16 gigabytes, can go up to 32 with most of the phones. The big one that they're talking about is the just-in-time
Yeah.
feature is going to be added to the Java runtime environment, which is a huge one. I saw over like 400% faster. I don't know how much I believe that.
They're
but
saying that Google is claiming between 2 and 5 times faster on the exact same hardware.
yeah, and that seems crazy.
Well, that's Java. It's specifically JavaScript performance that they're talking about, because the just-in-time compiler specifically is optimized for JavaScript, which works with Google, which works with Google Web Toolkit, works with HTML5, and all that whole group of things that they're opening but pushing.
Do you think they're going to have like Java virus, or not Java viruses, but you know the Android viruses that are?
Well, that, you know, when I was thinking about them announcing this, the ability to push things to a phone, the first thing I thought is, man, that'll make for some awesome pranks. Because if you can push something to someone's phone, say they're on a date, and you can push whatever you want to that phone, you know,
probably have to
There-
be logged into your account though, your Google
Yeah.
account.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you need to hack in order to you need to hack their account in order to get it. But an enterprising geek that really wants to do a fun prank,
Yeah,
you
one
know,
of my concerns is, especially with free apps, you don't know what else is in the app. You know,
Right.
it might be grabbing all my contact information.
Sure.
Okay, well, they have a security model for that, and I'll talk about that in a bit. But one thing is they do scan the apps that go on the App Store to make sure there's no viruses in them. Of course, there hasn't been any viruses for the Android OS yet. But one issue that they did have is, like, I saw somebody created a banking app and pretended to be a bank and pushed that app out on the store. They're not physically looking through the apps to verify them. So a couple people have installed it. One of the security firms out there found it, and Google removed it from the marketplace in the phones. But that is something that you need to be careful of, especially with your financials and stuff, that you're getting their actual application. And that's kind of the downfall of this huge openness that they have. Is they're able to do things that you couldn't do on the iPhone that might be a security risk. So, yeah, I think 2.2 will be a pretty big update. Like 2.1 improved a lot of little tweaky kind of things, and this one, the way it sounds, is going to be a pretty big one. So I'm just going to briefly touch on some of the architecture things in here.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
It's like 10 to 9. I foolishly scheduled something for after this. I thought it was going to end at 8, so I have to leave, but I did have one question. And the question was, is anybody familiar with running mirrored Linux servers?
like failover.
Yeah.
Is that?
Redundancy.
Like you would do in Windows.
Well, you have 2 servers,
Yeah.
and everything's mirrored. User accounts, everything's mirrored.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Anybody have any experience with that?
If you're trying to mirror, why don't you just do virtualization and have a golden image that you could go from?
Well, there's deals like I can't remember, it's a DRDB or something like that. There's a system where you can mirror. Okay, like you got 2 file servers, and you want to say, well, if this one dies, I want it to immediately,
Right.
the other one, which usually goes with high availability stuff.
Yeah.
But it basically, there's this, I know it's a DR something or another, but it's basic.
DRDB, software development for high availability clusters.
Yes. Oh, yeah. But basically, so I've never done it, just read about a little bit, and it's basically like doing RAID 1, but over a network type of thing. And they've got a complete little thing, and basically the ones on both sides don't access the drive directly, they go through another device. This DRDB creates another device, and then you access that.
Okay.
And when and there's various little scenarios and how it could work and all that kind of stuff. And there's all little fine points like, okay, now you failed, now you got to come back. When the other one comes back, you got to get synced back up, and it's all been done.
So that's drdb.org.
Was it?
drdb.org.
Yep. And the high availability, then there's other little bits and pieces. If you do need a redundant thing, there's other things. How do you, switching from one to the other, which is a whole other little things.
It looks like they've got a management console that goes along with that.
Okay. I'll take a look at that. This has been great. Do you usually end up going like?
Yeah, we like to
It
talk.
varies.
We end up going long.
All right.
I had planned for an hour, but
Yeah.
we got all the
Everybody talking.
I'm thinking about in the meeting invite saying 6:30 to 9:30 instead of 6:30 to 8:30 because we
Okay.
often go long.
Yeah. Okay. It's been great. And I look forward to coming back again. Good presentation. Thank you.
Sounds good.
I hate to run, but my
No, that's cool.
81-year-old mother's waiting for me to come and fix her computer. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's that 1% of the old
Yeah.
ladies. We were breaking down our business.
It's cool. Have a good
Thanks
day.
a lot.
So I really only have a couple of slides left. So they have their architecture, and the main thing is these are the applications you're writing. These are some of the frameworks you can communicate with. These are libraries that you have So the basic point is like if you need a database for your app, you're not going to have to include a huge database thing within your app. SQLite is already on Android OS, so you can use that. You have the Dalvik virtual machine, which is what the majority of the apps, all the apps, in theory, are going to be running inside of this virtual machine area. And then you have the Linux kernel, which has all the driver kind of core things on the computer. So when it does come to security, like you said before, how do you know they're not taking all their contacts? When you go to install an app, it's going to come up with this screen. Do you really want to install this? These are the things that it's going to use. So by default, an application is going to run inside a sandbox. And in that sandbox, it cannot access the memory of anything else, so you can't have overflow. It can't access files from anything else, because it's going to be running as its own user. If you can think of like Linux, it's going to be running as its own user. It can only access the things that it's creating. And it can't access anything of the hardware. It's in its sandbox, and it only can run off of the APIs that Google provides for Android. However, they can say, I need network access. So when there's like a config file that they include with their application, they say that I need full network access. And that is going to give their sandbox a little extra room to do something. But it does mean when you go to install it, it's going to tell you this takes all your network access. Now, if this was something that had access to your contacts, it's going to tell you in this, yellow thing, it's going to access your contacts, which is good and bad. Like I had an app on there, my contacts got all messed up. I needed to delete all of them, but there wasn't a feature in the built-in thing to delete all of them, so I installed an app that could delete all of them. It came up with that warning that it's going to have access to my contacts, and it cleared them all out just like it was supposed to. On the iPhone, I don't know if that's possible. But the bad thing about it is, like the Google Maps, when you install it, this list of things is like scrolling up and down, and then they have like a view additional things, and then it's another scroll up and down because they have access to so many things, because it's connected to so many different apps. So it's really up to the user to make sure that they're protecting themselves, which is kind of good and kind of bad. It's good for us, bad for the normal user.
Yeah. It's like the voice recording. You can do everything with voice recording. So voice recording has access to everything.
Yeah. So
and of course, it would be let's say you install this, and it's a core kind of thing, core app. Then you install another app. You're really not getting visibility to the fact that that now also makes use of a root kind of function. So the sequential thing.
Yeah.
But still, it's nice that they're giving you all those notifications.
Right. It's great for the developer, and it's great for people that really want powerful apps. And that's kind of the thing that Android is setting themselves apart from the other phone operating systems where they're really locking it down and only allowing developers to do basic kind of stuff. And all the applications are signed, so at least from the marketplace. So there is some security there to make sure that somebody isn't publishing an app and trying to publish it as somebody else. So that's that. For the programming, there's 3 different kind of environments if you're going to develop an application that you can write it in. The first one is Dalvik, and pretty much this is the main language. It's Java, but it's their own custom Java library, which includes the vast majority. I forgot what percentage it was. I know I think it was like 98% of the standard Java library is implemented in it, and it has an ADT plugin for Eclipse, so it has all the IntelliSense and everything for you. And it's the most powerful dev environment. You have access to the most API, like access into the system in Dalvik. But it's not best for performance-intensive operations. And I think it's interesting that you have this nice Java environment to program in where you're going to have full access to objects and inheritance and all those really cool things. But when you read on their dev site, they're kind of telling you not to do objects-oriented development. They're telling you, because this hardware is so limited that you don't want to use objects unless you really have to. You don't want to move things into modular function calls. You want to instead put it all together because it's faster to access the variables and everything that way. But it does have like the full garbage collection and advantages that you get with the Java rendered environment. The second one is Ajax, basically JavaScript. So outside of websites, obviously you can have JavaScript in it in the web browser, but you can also create applications that are developed in JavaScript. And the main difference between like Delvik and JavaScript is in JavaScript here you modify the screen to the document object model DOM. And their Ajax implementation in Android does support Canvas, and they're slowly releasing HTML5 support as it kind of becomes standardized. But you cannot access like the graphics layer outside of manipulating the DOM, and you can't like start a background process or access a background process like you can in Delvik. But it can be connected to Delvik. So that's kind of a very powerful tool there, that if you do have a front end written in JavaScript, maybe you're porting over a website or something, you can then have the powerful Delvik behind it. And the last environment is native code, aka C. And you can't purely write an application in C, but Delvik can reference C. And it's the fastest. So it's going to be best for mathematical, physics, loading large data files, that kind of stuff. But it has a very limited library base and very limited access to the system, so you can't write graphics in it. You'd have to write that in Delvik. And even though it's called native code, you're still in that sandbox security environment. So it's not like you get extra access to anything special. So I wanted to install, I did install like the environment for Eclipse and have a full emulator on your computer so that you can, as you're developing your app, you can hit play and it'll bring up like a phone on your screen, and you can interact with it, and it has, you can control like if it's going to have GPS, if it's going to have this feature, and you can play with turning on and off those kind of hardware features.
Do they have a stupid VM too? Like just give me a droid, let me play around with it in a VM.
That's
Or
SDK has one.
So the SDK you can theoretically create it.
Yeah, like you can
Okay.
control how much memory and stuff it's going to have.
Okay, but for my question is, are there defaults so that I can just say okay, now let me play with Android?
I don't think so, because I
Okay.
installed it and I was trying to figure out just how to get it to run.
Yep.
And obviously I only spent a little bit of time on it, so I would have figured it out eventually, but I couldn't get it to save.
Okay, well, yeah, that's worth a conversation, because one of my Linux journal articles was how to run Android in a virtual machine, and for that particular project it was a x86 offshoot, which is still based on 1.6, and so not necessarily representative of current technology.
Yeah.
And so if there was another way, I'm sure that they would be interested in providing it, in me providing another step-by-step process.
Mhm.
So that's just why I'm asking.
But you do have the emulator, which is handy, if you can get it to work.
I got it to work, but it was really slow on a
Was
not
it?
slow machine. It was bizarre, but it offered. I had the same desire. I wanted to just boot an emulated phone just to see what Android was like. And
Right.
it'll do it, but it was far from performance.
Which, by the way, who has the best virtual machine for phones? WebOS. They have a great SDK. Shows up. It gives you the default Palm Pre running through VirtualBox. Beautiful. So.
Yeah, I know that Google suggests if you are a serious developer, you should get a dev phone and you connect it via USB, and then as you're developing it, pushes the app onto it. You can run it natively on a phone, to see how it's actually going to run on real hardware. But if you're really interested in developing, I would suggest going to developer.android.com. And thankfully, with Google I/O, just having these past 2 days, they have added tons and tons of video content on how to develop for Android. And I was up late watching a bunch of them last night, and it's cool, very cool how open they are, and you can really see that they want to grow this operating system. So are there any questions, comments? Sweet.
Awesome.
Yeah, great.
That's it. Yay!